Hi, welcome you all to this special class on Unacademy Unlock YouTube platform. Today, as part of our special class, we will be looking at one of the important issues that is globalization and its impact on issues related to women in our society. Before starting our class, let us look at what are the major classes started by Unacademy in the coming month. As you can see here, from November 20 to November 22, Unacademy is starting this conclave of champions, wherein you can see that there are many top civil servants who will be guiding you on various aspects of civil services preparation. There is this Amitabh Bhattacharya, a retired IAS officer, Amanpreet, and then this year's second ranker, Jagrati Avasthi, and Durga Shakti Nagpur, and also Sachin Gandhi, the 10th ranker this year. They will be guiding you on all issues related to civil services preparation. As you can see here, Amitabh Bhattacharya will be speaking about should one have a plan B for UPSC preparation because it is highly uncertain. So you definitely need to have a plan B for UPSC preparation. And Durga Shakti Nagpal talks about how to step out of your comfort zone. She has done that as part of a civil servant. She took on sand mafia in UP. And Jagrati Avasthi, what are the qualities required to become an IAS officer? That means how you should go about your preparation and what can you do to become an IAS officer. Amanpreet will be sharing uh, experience regarding civil services when nation comes an officer's journey. And then Sachin Gandhi, this year 10th ranker, will be sharing his own experiences regarding this PSR optional for UPSC examination, Political Science and International Relations. Nowadays, it is becoming one of the most popular optional in the civil service examination. And these are all the what we call the achievements of Unacademy this year. You can see here, from AR 10 to AR 9 to 10 to 13, 14, 16, 20. These are all the top rankers of Unacademy platform. Then from 24th of November, Unacademy is starting all these batches. You can see here Mission 2022 comprehensive batch for GN studies for UPSC CSE examination, and then the other batches also here, both English medium as well as Hindi medium. Then complete test series to crack UPSC civil service examination. It includes optional test series as well as GS test series also. Then standout chance to stand out from the crowd with experienced coach, iconic GS experienced coach and free optional. Buy this 1 year iconic GS, get 12 months of optional free. Buy 2 years of iconic GS, get 24 months of optional free. Buy 3 years of iconic GS and get 36 months of optional free. This facility is available between 18th and the 9th, 24th of November. You can buy all those things, and you can also get additional discount for 10% by quoting our code PKS10. You can also get additional discount of 10%. You can quote our code PKS10 and you will get more 10% more discount on already the discount given by Unacademy for its students. Next, what are the other programs started by Unacademy? There is this live mentoring platform wherein Unacademy will attach you to a personal mentor. He will clear your doubts, evaluate your answers, and ensure daily answer rating. And also you have booster sessions apart from the regular classes. Then You also have this loan facility where an academy will be giving you loans, easy loans with 0% processing fee and 0% interest rate, and it is approved within 2 hours. There are no hidden charges. There is minimal paperwork and flexible tenures, so that you know you can get the loan. And then there also you can get 10% discount by applying our code PKS10. So these are all the various programs started by Unacademy on its platform. So let us come back and look at what we are discussing as part of the topic today. So we are talking about this impact of globalization on women empowerment in India. As and when you have any kind of doubts, you can always ask me your doubts. I will be clearing your doubts also. So what are we looking at here? Please remember, as part of our social issues, this globalization is a very important and favorite topic of UPSC as far as social issues are concerned. Every year in our country's paper one, in fact, in our essay paper also, impact of globalization on our culture, on our society, on our different sections of our society is definitely is asked by UPSC every year. So we must have complete knowledge about how this globalization has impacted women empowerment in India. What are the challenges that are being provided to women, and what are the major problems faced by the women, and what are the initiatives taken by the government, and what can be done by the government more to ensure that women benefit out of this globalization is what that we will be discussing today as part of our this special topic. As I mentioned, you can always ask me the questions, and I will be clearing your doubts. You can ask me the questions. I will see them here on the app, and then I can answer all your questions also. So this is what this is how we shall be proceeding. You can see here on the screen here. Uh, you can see here what is globalization. What are the major issues affecting women empowerment in India? How globalization has changed gender equations in the country, and what are the major problems faced by working women in the country, and what are the major issues faced by women as part of work issues, workforce, and then we'll also be looking at what are the solutions to ensure empowerment of women in the country. This is what we'll be discussing as part of the next 1 hour or so. So let us start with the issue related to globalization. What exactly is globalization? We talk about this globalization all the time. Almost, it has become a buzzword for everyone. Anyone who talks about policies, anyone who talks about society, anyone who talks about culture, always first initially talk about globalization, and then they talk about everything else. So the question that we are asking here is, what exactly is this globalization, and how did this globalization happen, and what we are doing as part of this globalization. This is what we have to understand. As I keep on saying all the time, we have to understand the concepts better to write them good answers also in the examination. This is what you must remember. So what exactly is globalization? Has this globalization started only in 1991 in India? Before that, we did not have any kind of globalization. And is it only a very recent phenomena? That is the question that we have to ask here. So this globalization means integrating a country's political, economic, administrative, social and cultural systems with the rest of the world. This is the simple definition of a globalization. I repeat, integrating a country's political, economic, administrative, social and cultural systems with the rest of the world. What is the objective of this globalization? The objective of this globalization is to the objective of this globalization is to benefit out of this kind of integration. That is, you are contributing something to the rest of the world, and the rest of the world is also contributing to your success. As Mahatma Gandhi would say very aptly about this globalization, he would say that I would like the windows of my door to be kept opened. I would like the windows of my door to be kept open so that the fresh air can come in. At the same time, I would also make sure that I am not swept off by the winds. I am not blown off by the winds. This is what Mahatma Gandhi had to say about globalization. That means, as a country, we should always allow other cultures, other people, other customs to come and integrate with our own society. We should always be open because it is only the diversity that can ensure sustenance of societies for a longer period of time. Because no society, no culture in this world we can call it as perfect. There are so many imperfections. We can always learn from others, and this globalization provides opportunity for us to learn about other cultures, to learn about their strengths, to learn about their weaknesses, to learn about their mistakes, so that we can learn from, we have the opportunity to make ourselves more developed in the process. And the question that we are asking here is that, is this globalization a recent phenomenon in India? We spoke about globalization only from 1991 onwards. Not at all. This so-called globalization has been there since the beginning of what we call our civilization. It is there since the beginning of our civilization. Why do we say that? Why? Because if you look at the beginning of our civilization, if you go by anthropological studies, our civilization started somewhere in Africa. The first traces of human beings started in Africa. From there, they traveled to the rest of the world in search of livelihood, in search of a better strand of life. They were nomads and they were traveling. And that is what is globalization, right? So, and if you go back to the ancient India, and you will be surprised to know that it was the ancient India that took a lead in this globalization. Ashoka had sent his emissaries to Sri Lanka and other Southeast Asian nations. That was also what we call globalization. But that globalization was mostly what we call to spread Buddhism. But if you look at it before that also, our ancient India had extensive trade relations with the Roman Empire. If you look at it, one of the important reasons for the collapse of Roman Empire was because of its trade relations with India. In those days also, India was self-sustaining sustenance economy. India, there was a lot of demand for Indian products, Indian jewelry, Indian spices, Indian clothes in those countries. So, Roman Empire had imported all of them because the rich people there would always consider it as a status symbols to wear Indian clothes and Indian jewelry and everything else. So obviously, there was huge amount of exports from India, and India received huge amount of gold from the Roman Empire. And the situation had reached such a dire, point that in the Roman Empire there was not enough amount of money also. They could not pay the salaries of their soldiers also, which led to ultimately the end of the Roman Empire. So globalization was there from the ancient times. And the first country the Christianity has spread outside Israel and Arab countries was India. So globalization was there in India because of economic and trade reasons, and more importantly because of this social and cultural reasons, religion also. As I said, Ashoka had sent emissaries to spread Buddhism, and it has been part of Indian culture for a long period of time. Unfortunately, what happened in between, we had in Hinduism there was this tradition that in Hinduism there was this tradition that if you travel overseas you lose your caste, because of which what happened was because of which what happened was this globalization has received a major jolt because Indians for this majority caste Hindus were not allowed to travel overseas during the medieval ages. Then after that, we had this imperialism, wherein most of the tribes from this Central Asia had come to India, and especially from 7th century onwards, they had come to India through Khyber Pass from Afghanistan. They entered into India. They settled in India. We have seen initially this Islam Muslim rule, and later we also have seen the Britishers coming to India. India was the richest country in the world at that point of time. That is the reason why most of these trading companies from Europe had come to India to benefit out of their trade. That was also part of what we call globalization. So after what happened after 1947 when we got independence, it was a case of it was a case of what we call uh, you know uh, India opting for autarky, what we call it as closed economic system. The Britishers had come to India as traders, East India Company. They came to India as traders, and slowly but surely they occupied the whole of the country because India was not a unified nation at that point of time. They made use of they exploited the situation and they occupied the whole country. That was the reason why after independence we have opted for what is called uh, this autarky, closed economic system. We did not want these multinational companies to come to India again also to either to uh, colonize the country. It was felt that we were too weak at that point of time to benefit out of this globalization. So for a period of 40 years, from 1947 to 1991, around 45 years, we lived in autarky. After 1991, because of the dire economic situation the country was facing, we had no option but to be part of this process of globalization. We had to open up our economy to the rest of the world to benefit out of this globalization. And this globalization, as we say, has impacted India's society in more than one ways. What are the changes that the globalization has done, and how it has impacted our culture, and how it has impacted our work in the society, and more importantly, we have to look at how this globalization has had a major impact on women in our country. That is the topic that we will have to discuss now. So let us look at all these things one by one. As I said that in 1991, we have opted for this liberalization, privatization, and globalization. As part of this globalization, what we have done is we have invited the foreign multinational companies to come and invest in India. We also have opened up our economy to the rest of the world by removing restrictions on trade and investment. And we also have allowed Indian industry to go abroad and benefit out of this globalization by exporting their products and services to the rest of the world. And we also have allowed more people to people interaction as part of this globalization. So what is the impact here? How this globalization has impacted the culture and the more importantly the women in our country. That is what we have to look at. So when you look at it, as part of this globalization, what we can see here is that as part of this globalization, what we can say here is that uh, when we allowed, when we opened up our economy, till then we were living literally in what is called a frog in a well kind of a situation. This is how we can aptly describe India before 1991. A frog in a well. What is this frog in a well? You know, a frog is there in a well. It can never come out of it, and it thinks that the well itself is the entire world for it. India was also like that. People of the country simply did not know what was happening in the rest of the world. They did not know what are the different cultures, what are the different traditions, what are the different customs, what are the different processes that are there in the rest of the world. Because we also did not have access to what we call communication systems also. We came to know about the Western societies and Western cultures only through the Hollywood movies, and even they were also very less at that point of time. Otherwise, we were mostly living in a closed society. And on top of it, there were very few Indians who could travel abroad at that point of time. Why? Because Indian passport was considered one of the weakest passports in the world at that point of time. If you are an Indian citizen, it becomes almost impossible for you to get visas to other countries. There was very little migration also of people, especially for work-related issues. There were only a few countries wherein Indians migrated. It was the Malayalis who migrated mostly to Arab countries in search of employment, and that is what we had to say for globalization. And the number of Indians in foreign countries, especially in Europe and America, was negligible. And those countries also would not give visas to Indians also. So obviously, Indians were living in their own self-imposed isolation during this period, and our work culture was mostly what we call chalta hai attitude. We were never serious about our work. We were never disciplined in terms of our in our culture, and we were never professional in terms of our functioning also. Coming back to women, what kind of society we had? So during this period before globalization, we had what we call patriarchal societies. Since agriculture was the major occupation of the people, we had only what we call patriarchal societies. So women are always considered, they were always considered as secondary grade citizens. They were always considered as secondary grade citizens. They were not given any kind of freedom or independence in the society. They were not talked about as separate individuals. They were married off at a very young age, and they were expected to perform only what we call household functions, taking care of their family, taking care of their family. Beyond that, nothing was there as far as women were considered in the society. Beyond that, nothing was there. And then later, you know, most of the women at that point of time were mostly taking care of household. Women education was also not very significant. Female literacy rate also was very less during this period. There were very few women working in organized sector. Very few women working in the organized sector. There are very few women who studied in IITs and IIMs. They were the ones who were working in the organized sector. Otherwise, there was no what we call participation of women in all these issues. This is what we say the before globalization, because there were no opportunities also, and there was a complete glass ceiling. Most of the industries were owned by the few families. It was the male domination of industries. So there were not many women entrepreneurs also. But what we say here is that everything has changed with globalization. How it has changed globalization, and how gender equations have changed with the globalization in our society. With globalization, what happened was suddenly women found themselves in a very what is called a challenging situation. They got opportunities. They got opportunities for them to. They got opportunities for them to empower themselves. They got a good number of opportunities for them to empower themselves. How? There was a spread of what we call educational institutions, especially professional institutions like IITs and IIMs and management institutions. And more importantly, the service sector. This is where we talk about it. Before 1991, it was only primary sector and industrial sector dominated. Service sector was not that much prominent in India. And after 1991, what we have witnessed was the sudden explosion of the service sector. And this service sector required what we call skilled personnel. The service sector required skilled personnel. And they require also committed workforce also. And it was found that women are uh, more skilled and more committed and more disciplined than men. When we talk about service sector, we are talking about IT sector, information technology. We are talking about the banking sector. We are talking about communications. We are talking about entertainment. We are talking about advertising, and we are talking about in this other parts of this service sector. And what we can see here is that in this service sector, women definitely had outnumbered men in terms of employment also. And it has also, as I said, had major changes in terms of their education also. Parents have realized that women are no longer considered as liabilities. Unfortunately, in Indian families, what is the status of women? Women are always considered liabilities. Why? Because first and foremost, if we look at it in a first and foremost, if we look at it, women, it's in the because of the patriarchal societies, women are never considered the torch bearers of a, family, because in patriarchal societies like India, it is considered that the male in a son is the one who will be carrying the family legacy. Women are married off, and after their marriage, their surname also changes. So it was a case of women being treated as a secondary grade citizens within their own family. Female education was never given any importance, and female in a this job was also never given any kind of importance. Why? Because it was believed that if the parents are spending money on their education, and then they are forced to get the grooms for their brides by paying huge amount of dowries also. So that is the reason why they deliberately made sure that women remain illiterate, uneducated, so that they can also get the kind of grooms with less amount of dowry also. So our society was in what we call low level of equilibrium as far as women were concerned. There was no education, there was no economic independence, there was no empowerment. They always were forced to live under the shadow of the male members of the family. It was what we call the parents in their young age, and then once they grew up, it was under the shadow of their husband, and once they become old, under the shadow of their children. So there was no independence, there was no empowerment, and there was no autonomy as far as women were concerned. They were not given any kind of freedom in terms of their education, because everything was dictated by their parents. And since after marriage, since they depend on their husband for survival, they had no independence related to the family also. So it was a completely dependent life for women during this period. There were very few women who got education and who also got empowerment during this period, that is before liberalization and globalization. Very few women, because opportunities were very less. Female literacy rates continue to be one of the lowest in the world also at that point of time. Now, what this globalization has done is it has made parents realize what was happening in the rest of the world, especially in the developed countries. In the developed countries like United States of America and United Kingdom, what we witness is what is called parity, gender parity, equality. There is they don't differentiate between male and female children. They give equal amount of freedom to the male as well as female children, girl child. They give equal importance to their education. They give complete freedom to the male as well as female as far as their family related decisions are concerned. Parents will not interfere. And also women also have the freedom to work also. So what we call in those societies are more liberal societies compared to India, which was highly conservative society, patriarchal society with parochial attitudes. Those societies are more liberal societies, more egalitarian societies, more equal societies that provide opportunities equally to both men and women. So after globalization, what we have witnessed was this phenomenon of Indian parents being able to understand what was happening in in the rest of the world. They realize the fact that women need not be considered as liabilities in the family. They realize the fact that women empowerment, women development will be only good for the family in the long term, because they could see that the girl child is more sensitive to the problems of the parents than the male child, and the girl child can be more can come to the rescue of their parents compared to the male, because women are more emotional and more emotionally attached to their parents. So that is when the parents in our country have realized the fact that educating their girl child can be more advantageous to them rather than being in a disadvantageous position. Before globalization, as I have mentioned, they did not spend enough amount of energy, time, and concentration and resources on girl child. Why? Because they were always considered a liability in the family. After globalization, suddenly there were so many opportunities for them, for women. So that is when the parents realized that it is in their best interest to educate women, girl child, and also to empower them. On top of it, what happened with globalization is the private sector had come up in a big way, when especially in the education sector. So many opportunities are provided for women to excel in education, and this has completely changed again the gender-related equations. The parents are not afraid of spending more amount of money on the education of their girl child, because they realize the fact that this girl child can be an asset to them in the future. They realize the fact that with this globalization, they don't have to pay as much dowry as earlier it was imagined to get their children married off, because there are so many opportunities for women to find their own future grooms at workplace and other places also, so that this dowry will not become a major issue, because when women start earning, obviously the men cannot demand the same kind of dowry as when women were unemployed. So why? Because women are also becoming economically independent. That has motivated the parents to spend more money on their education. Please remember how the dynamics have changed. Previously, the parents were not willing to spend money on their education because they felt that they did not have enough resources to educate the girl child, because they had to save a lot of money for their dowry. So women were in what we call it as low level of equilibrium. Now with globalization, with availability of opportunities, the parents are not afraid of spending more amount of money on the education of their girl child, because they know that the dowry is not going to be such a major issue at this point of time, because once they start earning money, they are no longer liabilities. They are no longer dependent on they are no longer dependent on paying dowry to get good matches. So obviously the gender equations in the society have changed drastically thanks to this globalization. And that is the reason why, and that is the reason why there is huge amount of emphasis on girl child education, especially from 1991 onwards. I said it is also the service sector that has contributed very significantly to this aspect. In this service sector, as we keep on saying all the time, in this service sector, women are preferred more than men. Take the case of hospitality, take the case of health sector, take the case of education, take the case of software, take the case of banking, take the case of communications, take the case of entertainment. This is where suddenly women found a lot more opportunities for themselves. In fact, they found lot more opportunities for themselves than men also in these sectors. Obviously, the employment opportunities also have increased. And this is what we say in urban areas. In rural areas, what we have witnessed is this self-help group movement also. This self-help group movement also benefited out of this globalization, because in rural areas, the self-help group movement, the emphasis was more on economic independence of women, which again being transformed into what is called political empowerment of women with the help of the Panchayat Raj. That is a different thing. So coming back here, suddenly what we have seen is more opportunities available to women, and most importantly, as I have mentioned repeatedly, change in the mindset of the family, the parents. This is the major change that has taken place after globalization. As the question, as the you can see on the screen also how globalization has changed gender equations in the country. This is the major change. Women are no longer considered as liabilities by the parents. Women are no longer given secondary importance by the parents. Women are no longer treated only as outside property, because after marriage their family name surname changes and they will become part of other families. This kind of attitudes have completely changed in our society. And there are so many parents, so many families in the country wherein parents are more than happy with what is called girl child. They don't even require demand the male also. This is the kind of changes that are taking place in our society in the last 30 years or so. So this is when globalization has provided opportunities for them. From with education, they also got more opportunities in employment also. As I said, most of the service sector prefer, yes, exactly, Sunidhi. They are considered asset, not as liabilities. This is the kind of change that has taken place. And mostly initially we could see that this change was taking place in in it was taking place in uh, what we call metropolitan cities. It was taking place in the metropolitan cities, but slowly it has penetrated down to the tier 2 and tier 3 cities also, middle towns and small towns also, and later it has spread to the villages also. This is the kind of change that we have seen in the last 30 years also. This kind of changes, please remember, when we talk about the changes, when the changes are taking place, nobody recognizes them. After the changes take place, nobody need to recognize them. So these are all what we call under the carpet. These kind of revolutionary changes are taking place under the carpet. And with globalization, what happened was huge amount of increase in the opportunities for women. As I said, more opportunities for women than men also. As sometime back in the ethics paper also, the question that was asked, it has related in unemployment amongst the men also, because companies prefer more female employees because they are more committed, they are more disciplined, and they are more professional, and they are more efficient also. Even if you look at the last 15 years or so, if you look at the top rankers in the CBSE examination, most of them are only girl child, which clearly shows shift in the gender equations also. And similarly, in civil services and other corporates also, we can see women dominating. This is where we say the kind of changes that have taken place. Now, the next important uh, aspect that we have to discuss here is that then when all these positive changes are taking place, what are the problems faced by working women in the country? And what are the major issues faced by women as part of the workforce? And then what are the solutions? And what are the major issues affecting women empowerment in our country? That is what we have to discuss here. So if you look at it, if we look at it, we have seen mostly the positive aspects of globalization, positive consequences of globalization. But this also had led to many problems. First and foremost, the patriarchal societies in India could not accept the fact that women can be equal partners in the development process. The mindset of males is what the major issue here. They could not tolerate and accept the fact that women are as equal to men in terms of their efficiency, in terms of their independence, in terms of their empowerment. This patriarchal mindset is what the major issue as far as working women that face in our country. Patriarchal mindset of the people. This is the most important thing. The attitudes of the male. Male always believe that they have the right to control and direct and regulate the activities of women, whether it is at the workplace or whether it is at the home. And this is the major issue. This is the issue that is being faced in politics, in entertainment, in service sector, in industrial sector, and within the household, everywhere else. It becomes almost impossible for the male fraternity to accept women as equal partners in uh, in the society. This is the major issue. That is the reason why you can see that after this globalization, there was huge amount of demand for increasing representation of women in what we call this assembly and parliament. 33% reservations for women. The issue continued to be discussed and debated but never implemented. That is where the problem is. Why? Because ultimately it is the mindset of the male that is responsible for this kind of problems faced by women. Second important issue that we face here is the glass ceiling that we find in industrial sector, in the service sector, in the private sector. It was believed that women are not tough and they cannot take tough decisions. That is the reason why top level positions in the organizations are never given to women. You take all the companies in India, how many of them are owned by women? How many of them are top level positions are occupied by women? 2013 Indian Companies Act makes it mandatory for representation of women in the board of directors. But still, most of this is only nominal representation without giving them any real powers. Similarly, take the case of the 73rd, 74th amendments. 33% reservation is given. In states like Bihar, 50% reservation is also given for women. But these are only what we call cosmetic measures, and they did not result in any empowerment of women. This is where the major issue again here is the stubborn attitude of the men, whether it is in a polity or economy or administration or the society. That is what is coming in the way of empowerment of women. Next major issue faced by women is working women in India is safety and security. Safety and security. The sexual harassment at the workplace is a major issue. Unfortunately, in India, we do not have any what we call safety mechanisms to ensure that women are given sufficient protection at the workplace. Especially at the top level, the male executive always tries to uh, always believes that it is his right to molest women who are working under him. There are no enough grievance redressal mechanisms. On top of it, if any woman tries to raise these issues in public, and the most of the time, the criticism will be against the woman only. In recent times, in Europe, in America, we have witnessed the Me Too movement, as all of you must be knowing. Me Too movement. This Me Too movement has made for the first time the kind of exploitation, sexual exploitation that takes place in various industries, whether it is entertainment industry, whether it is service sector, whether it is either bureaucracy, whether it is politics, everywhere else, we have seen this kind of sexual exploitation. Till now, nobody has the courage of conviction and the guts to speak about this kind of exploitation. More often than not, women have suffered this exploitation silently for the fear of losing their jobs, for the fear of inviting uncertainty and insecurity in their future. They suffered silently. And this is a major issue. At least in foreign countries, this issue was discussed openly and debated openly. But unfortunately, in India, this Me Too movement has fizzled out very fast because of again the parochial attitudes of the society. On the other hand, in countries like India, what we see is that those women who complain about exploitation and harassment at workplace are considered untouchables, and automatically they will never get any opportunities. We have seen so many struggling actresses speaking openly about the kind of exploitation faced by them at the workplace, and we also have seen that suddenly they disappear from the industry also. That is where a major issue, the safety and security and the sexual exploitation of women at the workplace. This is where we are yet to find any solutions. Next problem that we say here is equal opportunities. As I said, women are never given equal opportunities to rise up to top level positions. Till now, We do not have in India a female chief justice of the country. After 75 years of independence also. Similarly, we don't have a female cabinet secretary also, and we don't have our multinational companies headed by women, except one or two instances. This is where we talk about this glass ceiling in our society. All the top level positions are still exclusively under the control of men. In spite of 30 years of our globalization process, we still have not been able to find solution to this problem. As I said again, this is because of the patriarchal mindset. Next, what are the other problems faced by working women in the country? It has only increased more burden on working women. Why? Because they're expected to work outside, come back, and take care of the family also. This is where it has made their conditions much worse also. At least before 1991, they used to sit at home and they would take care of their families. Now, their burden has doubled because they have to work in the office and also come back and take care of the children also. So it has increased their burden without giving them any kind of independence or empowerment. This is what another issue that we find, especially among the working women. It has increased their burden taking care of their family also, because still because of this patriarchal mindset, men always considered household activities to be the exclusive domain of women, whether it is cooking or cleaning or taking care of the house. It is considered exclusive domain of women only. It's said exclusive responsibility of women. There is no change in the mindset of men with regard to all these things, even after 30 years of independence. That only increased more burden on women, that only resulted in more exploitation of women also. This is another issue that has to be addressed urgently as part of this women issues, working women. What are the other major issues? Next important issue here is what we talk about. This economic independence of women has not resulted in empowerment of women. Now, still because of this patriarchal societies, women are expected to earn their salary and give that money to their male members of the family only. It has not resulted in any empowerment. It has not resulted in any gender parity or gender equality. That is where the still problem is, because male members of the family, they can spend the money the way they like, but they do not want women to do that kind of thing. They want the women to always ensure accountability of their salaries, everything else. This has not resulted in what is called equal societies. This is where another problem that working women faces in the country. And as I said, it has only added more burden to their life without empowering them efficiently. Another major unfortunate consequence here is, when you talk about the sociological consequences here of working women in the country, another major consequence here is this sudden independence and empowerment of women has also resulted in conflicts within the family. Since women are exploited, since women are treated as secondary grade citizens, they started revolting against their male members of the family. And what is the outcome? The outcome is that it resulted in more divorces, breaking down of the family system. Either in the last 20 years or so, in the last 15 years or so, especially if you look at it, it resulted in more breakdown of the families, because even for small regions also, you can see the divorce rate also has increased in India exponentially, which is what we find mostly in the Western countries also. Why? Because there is this false interpretation of freedom by the women, or for that matter by the men also. Why? Because for any institution to survive, there is need for some kind of hierarchy within the institution. So when everyone talks about independence, when everyone talks about equality, there is no scope for any kind of coordination. It only results in major conflicts. And this is what exactly happened. So it resulted in more divorces, and it resulted in breakdown of the family system also, which is what we have seen in the Western countries. This is one of the consequences of the Western culture. Especially, we can see in the entertainment industry. These kind of events are taking place on a more regular basis also. This is another issue that we talk about as part of globalization. So then, what are the other issues? And as I said, that safety and security of women, especially when they are traveling, because as part of this service sector, what we can see here is that they are expected to work during the night time also. So public transportation is highly insecure. So is the case with private transportation. We don't have any female police force also, and crimes against women also have increased because of the fact that they are coming out and they are working also, within their office premises as well as outside also as part of the transportation. This is another major issue. Safety and security of women has become a major issue, and the sexual exploitation of women has increased because of the fact that women are coming out and working also. This is a major issue that has to be addressed immediately, urgently by the government and the society. So then, now that we have seen all the issues, let us look at what could be the solutions. What are the solutions? As we say, first and foremost, we have to talk about the safety and security. This empowerment of women in this age of globalization and moving towards egalitarian societies is possible only when we say only when we can ensure safety and security of a girl child right from the time they take birth. We must ensure safety and security of women. If you look at it, maximum amount of this rape cases within the household are involved. They involve only the relatives and the neighbors. So we must ensure safety and security of girl child within the household and as well as outside the house. The government should come out with innovative solutions. Two, there's exploitation of women. This is very, very important. And the society should be coming forward to discuss these issues in a more open and frank manner. Most of the time, these issues are brushed under the carpet, saying that these are not as important as other issues. For example, women are never considered what we call a powerful political pressure group. If there is some kind of exploitation of scheduled castes or scheduled tribes or farmers or OBCs or minorities, that would automatically become a major political issue, and the government will be forced to come out with the solutions immediately. But that is not the case with the issues related to women. They are never discussed openly. They are never considered serious either by the state governments or the central government, or for that matter by the society. It is taken for granted that these issues will be there and we should not unnecessarily worry about all of them. That is where the problem is. So first and foremost, if we have to ensure empowerment of women, if we have to ensure egalitarian societies, if we have to provide equal opportunities to women, first and foremost we must ensure safety and security. The government will have to come up with solutions. Unfortunately there is no grand roadmap in front of the government, because if you look at within the government also, the ministry related to women and children is one of the less significant ministries. Mostly women are given this ministry and they don't do any work also there. Why? Because as I said, male dominated societies, politics is always dominated by men only, and if there are some women ministers in the cabinet, it is only for what we call perception stakes. The government wants to tell the rest of the world that we are also empowering women by including 2 3 women in the cabinet. Beyond that, there is no commitment on the part of the political parties as well as the government to ensure safety and security. This is where we must focus on. Second is educational opportunities. Still the educational opportunities for women are very less compared to the male population. And what is the solution we can provide here? The central government as well as the state governments, in order to ensure encouragement of female education, girl child, they can make sure that the education of women, girl child from KG to PG completely free, from kindergarten to post graduation. They can study as much as they want. Everything will be free. They can be given free education. And also, in order to encourage the parents to focus more on girl child education, the government can make sure that all the developmental welfare schemes implemented by the government be made conditional. That is, they can receive the benefits of these schemes only when they would send their girl child to the school. So that we can change the attitudes of the parents also related to women education. Ultimately, it is the education that results in their empowerment. That has to be recognized by the government as well as the society. When 50% of your workforce do not participate in growth and development, obviously the country's potential is never realized. That is the reason why, on a war footing, almost every state government as well as central government should come out with a policy that the education of girl child from KG to PG is completely free, so that we can ensure that this 50% of our population becomes productive and efficient. This is the second solution we are offering here. The third solution we are offering here is regarding opportunities for women at the workforce. The government can make it mandatory for private organizations as well as within the government to ensure positive discrimination. It can be either in the form of reservations, or it can be either in the form of providing more opportunities to women in the workforce. This has to be done on an objective basis. Obviously, we can see that in the service sector, women are given equal opportunities. Recently, we also have seen Army also has opened up its hearts as well as gates for women. Of course, because of the constant prodding by the Supreme Court. Army, one of those patriarchal institutions, has also agreed to reform itself by providing equal opportunities to women also. The same thing should be happening in almost all the sectors. In the industrial sector, in the service sector, everywhere else, more opportunities should be provided to women. And the government can take the lead by providing reservations for women. When we have reservations for scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, OBCs, and economically weaker sections, why we cannot give reservations for women? Because the most exploited lot in our society is none of all these sections, and it is the women. So obviously, the focus should be on empowering women. The focus should be on development of women. This is another solution that we are offering. Positive discrimination in the form of reservations. Next important solution we are talking about here is breaking this glass ceiling. As pointed out by our Chief Justice recently, it is high time we have female Chief Justices also. These are all symbolic measures, but they can go a long way in changing the perception of the society also. A farmer in a rural area in a village sees the Chief Justice as women, and he gets inspiration and motivation to educate his girl child. People think that they are all the only cosmetic measures, which is not the case. When you see 30% of women in the parliament as well as in the state assemblies, it also encourages other women to become part of politics. This is what we have to do. Since it is not being done as part of the normal changes that are taking place in the society, it has to be done as part of reforms. So the government should make it mandatory that at top level positions, imagine a female cabinet secretary, imagine an army chief who is a woman also. Imagine half the multinational companies are headed by women. So all of them will be. It might be what we call cosmetic measures. There is so much of criticism against reservations for women in parliament and assembly, saying that it is only rich, educated urban women will become part of the these houses of legislature. Let them be part of it initially, but over a period of time, you can see that it will also encourage other women to become part of this development bandwagon. This is another solution that we have to talk about as far as they benefiting out of this globalization process. And this is another thing. Next important solution that we can talk about here is changing this, implementing this anti-dowry legislation and other Posh Act and everything else to ensure safety and security at workplace, and also to remove this social evil called dowry also. This is where the governments can be proactive. whether it's the central government or the state governments, so that the parents need not worry about they need not worry about their getting their female child married off by paying huge amount of dowry. This is where the governments can be proactive also in terms of changing the perception of the people also. So these are all, you can see some of the solutions. Then there must be effective grievance redressal mechanisms at the workplace. In spite of Supreme Court judgment in this Vishaka case, most of these multinational companies, most of the industrial organizations are not willing to set up separate grievance redressal mechanisms for women. They have failed to ensure that women are safe and secure at the workplace. More often than not, they brush under the carpet all the issues related to sexual exploitation in their organizations. As I said, this Me Too movement in India also has fizzled out very fast because of the fact that it is a male who dominates the workforce, especially at the top level. This kind of cultural shift is the need of the hour, so that ultimately it can result in overall empowerment of women also. But globalization has definitely provided incredible opportunities for women which they could never even dream of before 1991, and it also has created so many problems and challenges. Ultimately, how we counter the challenges, how we come out with innovative solutions is what that really decides the future of empowerment of women in our country. And we can be optimistic about these things because of the increasing awareness in the society regarding these issues, and also the willingness of the society to discuss them in an open and frank manner. Right? I think that this should be more than enough. We have also completed our time, and tomorrow again we will be coming out with more issues related to your main examination. Right? Till then, take care of yourself and best of luck.